Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about this past weekend's Super Bowl event. As most Americans already know, this National Football League championship game is not only the most watched sporting event of the year, but also it's the most viewed television program in all the country as well. Everyone and their mother tunes in to the Super Bowl in the United States, even normies and non-sports or non-football fans. Basically, this event is an athletic and cultural phenomenon. And as we've seen over recent years, when something gets this big and popular and important and noteworthy, eventually the social justice warriors and leftists will take notice. And they of course immediately move to invade, take over, and claim this popular space for themselves. Even though they didn't start it or have anything to do with it prior, now they come in and act like they own the place. We've seen this happening at the Super Bowl for years now too, as we've covered in numerous videos how a number of the commercials airing during the show had noteworthy woke messaging. Budweiser was one example of this when they had pro-immigration commercials a few years back, and Audi went full feminist in 2017 as well. And now this year, we've got a particularly bad promotion from Olay, the makeup and face cleaning company, which we're going to go over. And it features one of our least favorite former YouTubers turned late night talk show hosts named Lilly Singh. That commercial she's in for Olay was an attempt at them to go pro-feminist and girl power, which ended in disaster. And then there's another woke ad from a company called Sabra who makes hummus, and we'll talk about that one too a little bit later. And finally, we'll wrap things up today by going over the now infamous Super Bowl halftime show, which featured performances from so-called Latinx performers like Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. And also, just to tease a bit, let's just put it this way: this year's halftime show got a little risque for some people's tastes. And well, we'll get to all of this today and more, but first, let me take a moment to tell you about our new channel membership program. This website approved me for memberships about a month ago, so now you can click on the join button below videos and donate to help keep this show afloat. And if you do, not only will you have my undying respect and gratitude, thank you very much, but also the first 100 members will get featured in the credits at the end of upcoming videos. Only a few of those spots are left though, so act quickly. In addition, I'll also be doing live streams more, starting a podcast of sorts where I'll have on guests, and also will occasionally talk to members of the channel who will get special invites to come and join me on the live show. There we can talk about news, politics, movies, gaming, pop culture, and whatever else you guys are interested in. It's going to be a lot of fun, and much more is to come soon too, so make sure you guys check out our membership program. Link to that below in this video's description, or again, you can also press the join button below any video on this channel. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's get more into today's first topic. As previously stated, Lilly Singh teamed up with Olay again this year, a company she had previously made woke ads with before. And now this time they're doing some kind of women in space, pro-diversity, feminist are the best kind of thing, in an ad which they call Make Space for Women. It's pretty cringe to say the least, and the numbers on this video on its YouTube performance tell a very interesting story too. For some reason, despite getting over 12 million views as of now, this Olay commercial still has only around 500 likes. And to make matters worse, there's over 4,000 people who dislike this thing too. And they turn the comments off, which is never a good sign. And I think we could guess why. Lilly Singh is the worst, of course, and this woke pro-SJW pandering and advertising, while it's been popular and it's being used often by companies, but it's also been equally hated and despised by the public and the potential customers, who are sick of rich people and Hollywood elites trying to shove their progressive propaganda down our throats. Let alone should they be pushing politics while also trying to advertise a product to us, especially when their biased, liberal, pro-female, anti-male stances isolate half the country. Or also, to put it better, they're alienating and belittling half of their potential customers. So let's look at this Olay commercial a little bit more and talk about what happens beat by beat. Things start off with an all-woman cast. A female reporter talks as 3 women astronauts walk up to what appears to be some kind of mission to make space for women, as they put it. This, of course, is an attempt at a play on words, and it's not half bad considering the double meaning they were going for. But I'm not sure I agree with this whole make space for women thing, since it implies women have been unfairly kept out of spaces previously. They haven't though. If girls want to grow up and be astronauts or presidents or firefighters or military soldiers, they have every opportunity to do so right now, if they really wanted to. In fact, women have had that kind of freedom and this ability to seek employment and career paths they want for a very very long while now. And that's why I can agree with taking umbrage with this whole make space for women thing. Not only does this phrasing imply women can't make it on their own and or they're being held back artificially, but also it suggests male-dominated fields got that way because of sexism and unfairness, instead of giving men credit for earning their way up and doing things on their own. And also, this is instead of acknowledging the obvious and true reasons why this is all happening. More men are astronauts because more men are applying to become them, and in turn, less women are likely to go for that gig, which makes them less likely to be going to space. But if you want to double check that this is right, just consider another job that's dominated by any other demographic. Would a make space for men ad fly in public if it was about dudes trying to get more representation in nursing related jobs? Or what if brown people campaigned to get more of their people into the NFL, since of course that sport is dominated by black males? And if these suggestions sound ridiculous to you, it's because they are, and they're also similar enough to this Olay commercial's premise that they go to show it's totally bunk. Next, we get to hear Lilly Singh awkwardly try and act like she's an astronaut, doing so with her typical forms of over-the-top faces and expressions, hamming it up like she's trying to make a child laugh or something. Then we get another actress named Taraji P. Henson, and she actually has the lady balls to say, when we make space for women, we make space for everyone. If you say so, lady. Sounds to me like you went a little too far with this pro-female, anti-male shit, so the writers of this trash commercial thought they could pretend this is an open and welcoming message for all here when it's really not. You're not making space for everyone, you just want to prop up women and push down men in the process. And really, if you wanted to make a proper pro-science, pro-astronauts and space exploration video, which is to be aimed at kids like how this one is, well, if you wanted to do it right, you wouldn't do so while excluding half the kids in the country. Look here, and you can even see behind Taraji in this picture, and they're using that slogan, Girls Who Code, back there on the wall. Kinda excluding boys though, isn't it? I mean, just imagine if you were a 10-year-old boy in school right now, and maybe you liked Star Wars and wanted to think about becoming a scientist or astronaut because of that one day. But then all you see in the media these days is them pandering to girls and excluding the boys openly and specifically, probably lowering their self-esteem and passion for things in the process. Now, this wouldn't stop a really motivated person, because it would take a lot of motivation and standing up to adversity if you actually wanted to be an astronaut and get into a profession like that anyway. So there is an argument against this deterring actually potential astronauts. But here's the thing, these same SJWs would say that girls get discouraged from professions in these same kinds of ways, which they're acting out themselves. That's exactly what they're complaining about and preaching all the time, blaming society and peer pressure for making less girls certain things. So it's rather hypocritical for them to then go and discourage boys in the same way. Or at the very least, they're purposely leaving the boys out and excluding guys from things like this commercial, or it's Girls Who Code messaging. But apparently, and as we've seen in various places for multiple years now, liberals always tend to think it's okay when they do it. So while they complain that girls are discouraged from doing things like becoming astronauts, well, they'll happily discourage boys from doing the same things because they're total hypocrites. And they're anti-male bigots who can't stand us because they can't stand people who are more successful than them. And it's just plain wrong. Then this Olay Make Space for Women commercial makes an even funnier turn for the worse at the very end. After all this talking up of women and showing only females involved in everything in this commercial, from the news anchors to the astronauts and their support teams, and after doing all this Girls Who Code stuff, donate to our cause and let's save the world nonsense, pretending ladies are the best and shit, well, the way they end this thing is pretty gosh darn hilarious. Hilariously bad for all the wrong reasons. Basically, as a last line here, and a sort of gag joke to end things on, one of the girl astronauts says, "What's this button do?" And then they go and press the button quickly without even waiting a second for someone to answer. This results in the girls getting ejected from their spaceship and sent out into space, sure to meet their own demise very shortly, if not in a few hours when they run out of air. Now, why on earth would you want to end a pro-female girls can do this commercial with them being stupid enough to press an eject button, killing themselves, and well, just straight up showing they can't do this? Well, that's certainly a great question. I know it gets them a small laugh at the end here, sure, but it also undermines their whole message. If girls could really code and handle things like men, I don't think they would be pressing big red buttons like that willy-nilly, especially when they're on a frickin' spaceship. And that about wraps up things on the Olay commercial here, which was certainly what I would consider the worst and most woke of the night. But there were a few other questionable moments in the show and other woke moments which we're going to go over now. Most notably, the next bit I want to talk about today, it comes from a commercial made by Sabra, one of the world's most popular makers of hummus. Hummus, of course, is a dish dish made from smashed chickpeas, mixed with tahini, lemon juice, and garlic usually. It's a tasty treat that's great as a dip with chips, or it can be used as a sauce in some kind of wrap, or all kinds of yummy things. It's really good with everything. But before my stomach gets me too distracted on this, let's talk about Sabra's new Super Bowl commercial and why it became a bit of a mess. Sabra's commercial is jokingly called How I Miss, and it features a number of guest appearances by a slew of different celebrities. Things start off with former wrestler Ric Flair, given a hearty introduction in his signature high-energy performance-level voice. Then there's some random black chick eating hummus who I think is a rapper or something, and she's laying down eating the chocolate dip, and I guess she couldn't be bothered to stand here. Next, we get to the stars and the talk of the town and why everyone's bringing up this commercial. The reason many are talking about this hummus advertisement is because of who's featured on the third shot here. The third group to appear in this Sabra ad is two drag queens who are covered in enough makeup and hairspray that you could paint and doll up a dozen clown faces with that much product. But I'm not here to complain or even throw mad shade at Sabra or the queens for being included here. Obviously, I have nothing against drag and LGBT alphabet people either, but it is worth pointing out, especially since many talked about this appearance in discussions leading up to the Super Bowl. Makes it kind of funny too, since everyone was talking about how drag queens were going to be in some commercial, when really they just say hi for like a few seconds and are barely even in this. And they're also just one appearance among like 20 others in this fast-paced, celebrity-filled promotion. So to say this inclusion was overhyped is a bit of an understatement. Obviously, this was just a publicity stunt of sorts. And it also clearly worked a bit, since it's the only reason this would have even been brought up in the first place. But also, in the long run, Sabra is leaving a bad taste in many others' mouths. And it's not just their hummus and the garlic aftertaste. No, people are sick of hearing companies pander to woke leftists, which in a way is sticking it to the greater majority who are actually the ones ending up watching this. I mean, why are they even including these drag queens anyway? If it wasn't just to be a woke panderer, even just for a second, it's not like there's some big audience for them out there. They're not even a significant group to advertise to directly either. No, this was just another woke move done by liberal higher-ups trying to virtue signal to get themselves attention and more profits in the long run. It's not about the issues or helping people or giving women or minorities a voice at all. Please, don't be naive. This is all about trying to make money for these corporations, and unfortunately, many leftists do feed into this pandering to them. They eat it up, but at the same time, the company will still suffer because those same leftists, they're terrible customers who have shitty jobs and rarely spend any extra money, and certainly not on these kinds of products. Finally, let's talk about what everyone was ranting and raving about this week. Besides the actual football game and the commercials, the Super Bowl halftime show has become equally important, noteworthy, and sometimes controversial and woke as well. This year started off rocky too, since the halftime show was being boasted as this Latinx tribute and a big honor for the Hispanics out there. Hispanics who probably would never use the term Latinx themselves, by the way. Only woke leftists who aren't Latin or Hispanic would use the term Latinx, but nevertheless, the Super Bowl went on with that SJW term anyway. And truth be told, the halftime show really wasn't that bad this year either, especially if you're a grown-ass straight man like myself, preferably without any kids around to watch either. Let me explain, and let me put it this way. This show was a bit overly sexual from the beginning all the way to the end. First, Shakira comes out shaking everything she's got and looking pretty good too, especially for an over-the-hill, over 40-year-old aging woman like herself. Yes, Shakira is still in good shape, but as others have said, it certainly didn't seem like the family-friendly halftime show that we've become accustomed to at Super Bowls, and it's definitely not what most expected. In fact, things got even more risque when the next act came out, Jennifer Lopez. She's an over 50-year-old woman, but that didn't stop her from getting overly and overtly sexual too, and even coming out and jumping up on a stripper pole and everything. Very nice for me, but not so much for Jimmy and Tony and Billy and Sadie and all the other kids who might be watching this show out there. Then to seal the deal, J-Lo began rocking a Puerto Rican flag at the end. Because of course she did. Gotta make this American sporting event being watched all over our country, well, you gotta put someone else's flag up to show how woke you are. I guess in current year that's required. It's also worth noting that while J-Lo's parents were Puerto Rican, she was born in New York, and she grew up and lived in the United States most of her life. Regardless, she's still repping another nation's flag, a nation who also happens to be a virtual US state or permanent territory, but that's besides the point. The main gist is this halftime show got very hot and heavy and steamy, which might be great and fine and welcomed even by many of us adults, especially men, but at the same time, it was obviously a bit degenerate and a bit much, and certainly it wasn't what most would consider consider family friendly or Super Bowl appropriate. Last thing worth mentioning before we go is Shakira's snake tongue moment and move, which she did at the camera at one point halfway through the halftime show. And many were upset or just kind of weirded out by it. The way she goes with her tongue, it was like trying too hard. And if you put that together with everything else we saw and said today, I think we can all see why it didn't go over too well. What do you guys think? Did Lilly Singh or Jennifer Lopez ruin the Super Bowl this year? And by the way, congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs who won, because screw the 49ers in San Francisco. Am I right? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.